this is Chief Modak again from headquarters ARPC here at Buckley Space Force Base. We're very, very excited for our training this morning. We have partnered with, we have Senior Sanchez that's going to join us. She's from NGB A1. And then we have Ms. Hare also from NGB A1. In addition, we'll be having the writing portion of the class taught by the Air National Guard Training Education Center, and they're at McGee-Tyson. So definitely today is a partnership class. We hope to, I don't know that we'll answer all of the questions when we get to the myDecs portion, narrative portions, things like that that are changing in the Air Force, but I do hope that we're able to impart a few answers to some of your questions and provide some learning opportunities for folks on this training. I will go ahead and say just a couple more things and I'm going to turn it over. My Teams is not working right now, but as soon as it is, the chat is disabled. We want to disable the chat so that everyone can pay attention to the content that's being given. When I open the chat, I will provide the link in Teams to our headquarters ARPC information toolbox. That is where all the slides will be able, you will be able to grab the slides that, any slides that you desire to grab. I will put the link there. If you're not a member of that team, I will be here on the background helping get people into that team. So no worries about getting slides. And we will open the chat when it's an appropriate time to start asking questions. When it does come that time, if you don't want to come off your mic and talk to us, that's fine. You can type it. But sometimes a question needs kind of a volley back and forth of a conversation. So when that time comes, we'll do that. And without further ado, at this moment, I will pass this class off to Sergeant Schulenberg from our recognitions team here at headquarters ARPC.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for gracing us your time and presence in this one-of-a-kind training. I am Sergeant Schulenberg, and I will be talking about ARPC recognitions. Next slide, please. Thank you. What I have for overview, I have your ARPC recognition team, references we use for decorations, our responsibilities, services provided, common errors in decorations, known issues with myDecs and fixes, helpful information. Next slide, please. Thank you. Your ARPC recognition team. Currently, we only have 5 team members. And there was a time that there are only 2 technicians left in the section. But did you know that we processed 47,470 in 2020 and 44,142 in 2021. So each technician processed 300 nominations and 70 inquiries weekly. Thank you so much, team, for your hard work, and thank you, leadership, for the unending support. Next slide, please. Here's our references for decorations. Just so you know, DAFMAN 362806 was officially released October 27 of this year. Next slide, please. Our responsibility here in ARPC, we answer high-level congressional inquiries, BCMRs for Guard and Reserve members, validate transactions concerning awards and decorations. So we ensure decorations submitted through myDecs are updated in MilPDS and uploaded in ARMS. We also provide guidance to MPF, CSS, commanders, and service members. Next slide, please. We also finalize decorations in myDecs, such as MSM, AAM, Air and Space Commendation Medal, Air and Space Achievement Medal, Combat Readiness Medal, MOBSM, revocations and amendments of decorations. Next slide, please. Thank you. We also process incoming decorations via mail from absent, but I would like to emphasize that ARPC only processes IMA members, separated retired members. So all unit assigned absent decorations are actually processed at base level. We also provide awards and decorations listing to our retired separated members and prior service. manually. We also provide replacement medals for eligible members for DAPMAN 362806, paragraph 2.7. Below is our service level agreement. So as I've mentioned earlier, there was a time that there are only 2 technicians left in the sections. We have a backlog for almost 6,000 nominations. And thank God that we cleared all those nominations in BPC. And please bear with us since we're a little bit behind on our inquiries, and we're currently processing the month of September. So if it's 21 days, again, I apologize for the delay, and thank you for your patience. Next slides, please. So please read the common errors in declarations. These are only few and sums, but please review declarations prior to submissions and always utilize your chain of command for reviewing processes. I'll let you read it a little bit. Thank you. Next slide, please. So for myDecs known issues and fixes, this is just the most recent resolutions and pending resolutions that has been released on R20 last September. And we get a lot of inquiries about users' ability to self-nominate remove. Just to let you know that functionality has been removed in myDecs. So if you have a pending nomination that you are the nominee and nominator, that won't be processed, unfortunately. Next slide, please. For training documents, videos, and job aids, they're actually available in my FSS library under myDecs folder. And this is for all users, commander, NGB technicians. And I put a link on there so you can just look at if you want to. And also, if you have any question, please feel free to submit it under my FSS platform. And also, if you have questions about your login in my FSS, there's just an update that they did recently. Instead of 90 days, it's now good for 365 days. And again, if you have any question, please feel free to contact A1 Service Desk for assistance. Next slide, please. I also put some helpful informations. And this is for the absent since we processed some declarations from them. Also, another update that was released on 26 May of 2022. If you remember Operation Inherent Resolve Remote Combat Effects Campaign Medal, before these awards and devices are not displaying in your virtual MPF. But as of 26th of May, this has been fixed. So good news, everyone. Thank you. How you can contact us? Please, before contacting us, locate or utilize your local MPF, FSS, or CSS. But if you have any questions for ARPC recognitions, please dial 1-800-525-0102. Next slides, please. So before I will be opening for questions, I would like to bring up Senior Sanchez from NGB to talk about myDecs bugs and fixes. Thank you all.
Hello, this is Sergeant Sanchez. I hope everybody's doing all right. I just wanted to let you guys know we have a list of bugs for myDecs currently. I will get these over to ARPC so they can get them posted. It was kind of a last minute decision to be able to give this to you guys. So the items that we are aware of is that you cannot do one-day nominations right now. The approval authority third line does not necessarily work every time. We know that the opening statements are missing nominee middle initial. We are planning to add the performance number to email notifications. We're also going to remove the email notifications for finalization. And this is when MPFs are receiving a lot of finalization emails, and it's not in the front of the coordination, but it's actually ready for the MPF to push it. We're going to correct some grammatical errors. We're also going to update the CSS concurrent statuses. change some other verbiage, get rid of the extra parentheses in some of the opening sentences. The biggest items that we have in our backlog are allowing ARPC technicians some additional functionality so they can help you guys out when you're having issues in myDecs. Also, overlapping date errors you're receiving for different types of decorations that do overlap but shouldn't stop you from putting them in. And the MPF being able to move nominations through the coordination process. With all that being said, our development team is actually working on our A&G separations epic right now. So many of these bugs have been pushed to the backlog and may not be fixed until early 2023. That is all I have. And again, I will send this list over so then ARPC can post it with the slides. And please feel free to reach out if you have questions. I can help direct you to the correct places if you are having issues with pushing decorations through. Back to you, Sergeant Schulenberg.
Thank you, Senior Sanchez. We appreciate all the input. It really helps the field have a little bit of idea of what's happening, and just to be able to be patient with all of us here and you guys as well. Chief, if you'd like to open up the chat, we can start with some Q&A.
So the chat is open, everyone, but we would prefer if you want to just either raise your hand or be brave enough to be the first one to come off your mic if you have any burning questions for the team.
Good morning. This is Colonel Watolsky in Nebraska. Just wanting to know, we have a few that were started very early in myDecs. Is there any way to delete them? We had some that were from different passcodes that it's not working. So I'd like to start over and delete those. Is there any way we can do that?
This is Sergeant Sanchez. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to delete anything that is in myDecs per policy. Once it's in there, it's technically a matter of record. If you're not able to withdraw them because they're under a bad passcode and you can't see them anymore, if you can send me a list, I will work on getting those in a status that will allow you to resubmit. Over.
Thank you.
All right, there's a question in the chat. Can you please clarify what the A&G MPF role is in myDecs?
So as I understand the question, the MPF role is supposed to be used to help navigate the CSSs and the nominators to be able to look up where their nominations are, along with being able to help with coordination, which is actually broken right now. And then ARPC, correct me if this is wrong, but it's my understanding that MPF would be the final review before pushing it up to ARPC to finalize. Over.
Okay, I don't hear anything from my team. We'll move to the next one and we'll have to table that one. We'll come back to that. The next question is, we've seen an influx of rejected awards, but the MPF has not rejected any decorations. Is that a bug?
This is Sergeant Sanchez, not that I'm aware of. I was just going to say thank you, Staff Sergeant Sanchez. The rejection is a MIL-PDS ARMS interface issue. So you need to figure out why they were rejected. And if you look in the technician tab, it will give you the rejection error. And then from there, you need to fix the reason why it was rejected and then refinalize. Over.
Okay, so for Sergeant, no, I'm sorry, it doesn't say Sergeant. Brianna Wood, you had that question about the rejected. Do you understand that answer? Does that make sense? Oh, okay, you typed. All right. Okay, the next question says, we have a unit who withdrew a nomination and is now trying to put it back in. I saw that the withdrawal nomination piece is not operable. Is there currently any workaround for this, or do they have to wait for it to be functional before they can renominate?
This is Sergeant Sanchez. The withdrawal probably hasn't been completed, which is why they were receiving the overlapping dates error. When you withdraw it, the withdrawal request will go to the approval authority. The approval authority will need to approve the withdrawal, and then once that is completed, the new nomination can be put in. Over.
For that person that had that question, is just a bunch of numbers. So, can you respond that you copy, or do you need to come off your microphone and ask anything clarifying? The withdrawal question just now? Okay, good copy. All right, great. Okay, next question. We wrote an MSM for a member before the conversion to myDecs. We need to amend the citation. How do we do that? That should be my team answering that one.
Which question was that one, Chief?
We wrote an MSM for a member before the conversion to myDecs. We need to amend the citation. How do we do that?
I could go ahead and speak on this one. This is Staff Sergeant Sanchez. For Jim's question, right now we'll be looking at airman questions shortly on those, but basically either that or my PERS ticket. We'll have to look at those at a case-by-case basis and then do either remove the old award and do an outside of system update to the form. So we'll edit the old decoration, remove the old one from system, and input the new update into ARMS. But for all those cases, they'll need to be done outside of the system through work tickets and myPERS or airman questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Sergeant Sanchez. All right, the next question says, how do we annotate at the MPF level that we have reviewed it before ARPC? It comes to the MPF as, quote, ARPC metals technician role.
This is Sergeant Sanchez. As far as I know, it should go to MPF and then to ARPC. If it's not working that way, we haven't been told that. So whoever asked that question, if you can reach out to me and send me some screenshots, and then I can look into it. And if there's a broader answer, I will submit that to ARPC so they can get it out to you guys. Over.
Okay, I'm going to open the can of worms because it pertains to this question. So my understanding in talking with some of you from the field, some of you have been able to complete and push to ARMS a finalized decoration, and some of you have not. I'm told it's something about the roles. So my understanding is that every decoration is not intended to come to ARPC to be processed. I'll pause there and let my team jump in. But we do know that that has been happening. I just wanted to be transparent about that to everyone on this training. And then I will pause and see if my team wants to add anything, or if you, Senior Sanchez, want to add anything to that.
Senior Sanchez, if you know the more technical way of explaining it, it might help, because we just know based on kind of what Chief defined as, like, it depends on the role that each MPF kind of has. So we don't have quite a clear answer. And I think you might have that better answer.
Sure. So technically in the system, the CSSs and the MPFs both have that finalized decoration button. That for the CSS, that is definitely a bug, and we've been pushing out to our AFPC BPOs to tell CSSs that they should not be finalizing decorations, even though they have that button. For the RegAF, MPFs are allowed to finalize their own decorations. And then I'm not sure what your policy is for the ARC when it comes to garden reserve decorations. So if the MPF is not supposed to finalize them, then they need to push them up to you guys for review and finalization. But technically they do have the button. Over.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then I'm reading down the chat and it says, someone said from the one, sorry if my computer is beeping, from the 184 said, to clarify Master Sergeant Wright's question, I believe she's asking what the role is called for the MPF in myDecs roles and routing. And I don't know if Sergeant Wright wants to corroborate if that's right. Those my folks from the 127, so.
Hey, this
ahead,
is Sergeant Sanchez. So I do want to clarify. So the MPF role in my evals is the military personnel role. The MPF role in myDecs is the MPF management role. So there's two different roles that you have to be assigned to. One use myEval and one use myDecs. Over.
Senior Sanchez, can you just say that one more time? I'm sorry.
Sure. So in my eval, the MPF role is the military personnel flight role. That's what it's called. In myDecs, it's called the MPF management role. They're actually two separate roles that have to be assigned for you to be able to use my eval, and then the other one to use myDecs. Over.
Thanks, Senior Sanchez. I know many of us were just used to VPC where you had the one role and it worked for all the different actions, and that's not the case in myDecs. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, we had the next question. It says, thank you for the updates. We have noticed that if a nominator ad hocs a nomination to say an 06, it seems impossible for an MPF role to reroute or coordinate that nomination without action by the ad hoc individual. I'm gonna pause there. I absolutely ask that we explain this one because I know this has come up a few times even with me. Does the updated MPF functionality help fix that so we can help move these nominations along if the ad hoc is unavailable, or perhaps make ad hoc the role equivalent, for example, group commander or equivalent?
So this is Sergeant Sanchez. We have not had a chance to update the MPF functionality yet. So no, the MPF cannot help reroute the nominations at this time. We do need to get that fixed. You have to send the decoration through the approval authority step in order for the other approval authority to be able to sign it. If you ad hoc it, they will not have the approval signature option. Over.
Okay, we had several people who retired and myDecs took too long and they were rejected because the member could not be found. I submitted my FSS question to try to get these expedited and got no response, and retirees do not have decks in their records.
Yeah, so this is one of the issues we have with being able to update the ARPC functionality so they can manually complete these nominations. I will work with Sergeant Schulenberg and get a list of all of these ones that have rejected because the members have already retired or separated, and we will get them fixed so then we can push them into their records. Over.
Hello, Jessica, can you hear me?
We hear you. Who was that?
Chief, that was Mr. McCoy. Mr. McCoy, can you
Oh.
hold off? We're still going through a Q&A portion for the ARPC briefing.
Okay, thanks. Hey, Mr. McCoy. Hey, TEC, they're on, so we can continue on with our questions and then get to the next portion.
No.
No? I don't know if there's a hot mic out there. I'll go ahead on to the next question. Okay, so Jim is next, and I know we talked about that question earlier, and Sergeant Sanchez answered that one from my team. And then you said you had a MyPurse ticket for a couple months. Jim, Maddie, would you send that to me, please, with your incident number? This is Chief Modoc, MODOCK. Thank you. All right, next question. The approval authority for all MSMs at our installation has been going to Group CC versus Wing CC. Is this a bug or something? Is this a bug or something we should be able to correct in MPF? We are tracking that Group CC should only be able to approve MSM with condition of retirement or separation.
So
Mic you up.
this, Mr. McCoy, I think you have a hot mic, sir. To answer that question, that is actually a routing issue. It's a user issue because when the reviewer, i.e. CSS, is pushing it to the approval authority step, they have an option to send it to the unit commander, group commander, or wing commander. And it sounds to me like that CSS is picking the wrong option. Over.
Okay, can you ask that question? Do you need to ask anything follow up about that?
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, next question. I seem to have lost the ad hoc function and would like to know how to get that function back.
This is Sergeant Sanchez. You shouldn't have lost the ad hoc function. It's an overall function within myDecs and now my eval. So I would say clear your cache in your Google or Chrome or Edge and see if it works then. Over.
All right, next one. The group commander cannot see nominations coordinated to him.
No.
He can see names of the nominees, but all information is
I think that's-
null. His permissions have been verified and multiple tickets were submitted, but there has been no responses. How can this be corrected? FSS has exhausted their resources as well.
Yes, this was a bug that has actually been corrected. One suggestion I would make is to make sure I would remove the group commander role, give it back to him or her, and then from that date, everything should start populating correctly. All of the old decorations may still say null, but when that group commander goes in to actually review it, all the information is there, so they can still review it. It's just not on the dashboard. Over.
Okay, so Sergeant Wright is making a comment, and it looks like it's in regards to what we were talking about with the routing process and who finalizes what. We have not received anything to review. Once the approving authority signs, we have found them in the members' PRADA completed with no MPF action.
And that sounds like the CSS is doing the finalization when they're not supposed to be. So I would just have a conversation with them. Over.
Okay, thanks. Is there any way that our CSS can have more than one squadron? Our CSS runs 2 units and he can't send one of the units stuff to that commander.
So that is a permission issue. They need to just make sure that the CSS has both passcodes assigned to them as a CSS, and then making sure that the organizational award passcode is correct. So then it goes to the correct unit, group, wing, commander for approval. Over.
Hey, Chief,
Yes.
this is Chief Bush. So going back to the last question where it said that the CSS may have pushed an award through the system and they shouldn't have finalized. So I'm looking at one that's similar with that same issue. It's in the member's product record. It's not in MilPDS, and it says the finalizing technician is Myra Schulenberg, and that's nobody at my base. So I'm not quite sure.
So Sergeant Schulenberg was the first briefer. She's here on our team at ARPC. So I definitely, that's why I was saying what I was saying to try to be transparent. I can see where there are definitely inconsistencies based on just how everything is going with the role assignments and some of the different bugs. So that's Sergeant Schulenberg is one of our folks.
Okay, so I guess my question is, how do we get it updated in MilPDS?
Are you saying it's not updated in MilPDS?
I'm looking at a Chris report with this particular member. I see it approved in myDecs. I see it in the member's product record, but it's not in the Chris report that I just pulled on 12 November.
Okay, so when was it completed? And then you remember Chris data can be several days old.
It was completed 30 September.
Okay, so that should have been on your 12 November.
Yeah.
But what was the MilPDS push date?
It says, I'm in myDecs, it says sent to MilPDS, success, MilPDS send date 30 September 2022.
Okay. I would recommend, Chief, I would recommend checking MilPDS directly before we go in and manually update it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was going to say that next. Chief Bush, would you check yourselves, not the Chris report, actually check MilPDS, and then would you let me know that?
Yes, ma'am, I will.
That
Thank
number.
you.
Okay, thank you. I know we already have a chat going. All right, let's see. Okay, so this question says the awards process flow chart in the A1 delivers teams channel for A&G says that the approval authority routes the decoration to ARPC and A&G MPF cannot finalize decorations. Hey, Sergeant Hill, thanks for that. I'm jotting that. I'm jotting a lot of things down, but I'm jotting that down as well. I have not seen that in the A1 delivers teams channel.
Hey, Chief, that was actually uploaded, I believe, by Mr. Brown at AFPC. Over.
Well, okay.
Chief,
So that's not necessarily the ARC.
It should be in the A1 delivers, and then you got to drop down to the decorations, the myDecs, to find the flowchart.
Right, but if Mr. Brown is it something that we courted on for the ARC, for the reserve and the guard? Okay.
Yes, Chief.
All right, we'll take a look. All right, in regards to the withdrawal request, if the approving authority has since retired and no longer has access to their account to approve the request, what can be done? Does it need to be a MyPERS ticket to be deleted?
So again, we cannot delete anything that's already in there. The approval authority is a organizational account. So anybody you assign to that approval authority role should be able to do that approval for the withdrawal. Over.
Okay, so Sergeant Hernandez, you need to assign someone else to that approval role. You good on that one? All right. I think this question was answered from Leora. Our group CC is having the same problem as Sergeant Worthley in my eval and some decks. Are you clear on that one now? I think that was already answered. You can come off your mic and talk, you guys. There's a lot of chat and I'm not seeing if you're typing at the bottom. I'm not necessarily seeing it, so I apologize if I'm not doing a good job moderating here.
This is Master Sergeant Worsley. The group commander problem that we're having, we've already tried to completely delete the group commander's account and recreate it. MPF here at our base has been really good with working with us, and his account just isn't working. Everything we send over says null. He can see the person's name, but he can't review the draft declaration.
So if he can't actually review it, that's a completely different bug. Because even with the null, the group commander could still review it and concur or non-concur on it, or approve or disapprove on it. Send me screenshots, please, and I will take a look into it. Thank you.
Hey, it's kind of funny. This is the group commander in question. I just walked in and heard you guys talking about it. So there should be screenshots included in those tickets. Are you not seeing any in there?
So I don't work the tickets myself. I'm kind of in the background working the system, but I can still look into it if you can send it over.
Okay, yeah, we'll get it to you. The struggle is I can review it, but if I can't view the draft citation, I can't verify the number of lines, because the way the justification shows out in the review page is not like the same number of lines. So that's the thing we're struggling with right now. Otherwise, I could clear them out and hopefully it'll start working.
Okay, sir. Yeah, just send them over. I'll take a look at it.
Okay, you got it. Thank you.
All right, everyone. I have closed the chat for now. And I apologize from the beginning. I didn't tell you how the agenda was going to go, although it was in the invite. But just to reiterate, we already did the portion from my team here at the ARPC. Senior Sanchez has helped us answer a bunch of the different questions that a lot of you have. And now we're going to go ahead and get ready to turn over to Mr. McCoy from the Air National Guard TEC. So we want to keep the whole audience on right now, all the reserve and the Guard. Anyone from the ARC will keep you on the class. This will be the writing portion of the class. And then once that's complete, we will go ahead and release the Air Force Reserve folks that are on this training, and we will turn it over to NGBs for some Air National Guard specific items. So I will go ahead without further ado and turn it over to Mr. McCoy and his team at the TEC.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Larry McCoy. I'm the superintendent of the Learning Development Division here at the TEC. To my left is Master Sergeant Tara Barron. And today we're going to talk about many different things to include bullet writing. We're going to talk a little bit about my eval, and then we're going to talk about the new performance statement or the narrative. So the first question that you're probably asking is, why are we talking about bullets since we're going to go to the narrative? Well, first of all, a good bullet will actually transform into a good narrative. Second of all, the EPRs for the next cycle that are written until next year will still be in the bullet format. So this is useful information to you. So as I said, we're going to talk about those three things today. So let's start off with a scenario. So let's say that you are a supervisor and you're writing on your airmen, and you write the EPR and you get all the bullets written, and you think you're good to go, so you send it to your supervisor, and it comes back like this. Things are circled, things are underlined, there's little squiggly things in the margin that you don't understand. So basically what happens at this point is your elation, because you thought you had done a good job, turns to this. So you're kind of confused. You thought you'd done a good job, and it may not necessarily be what you wrote about, it may be how you wrote it. And that's the big thing about bullet writing, is being able to write an effective bullet. So that's what we're going to talk about today. First of all, is we're going to talk about understanding the process of writing effective bullets. So we're going to talk about how to get started, how to collect the information on your individual, and how to make sure that you have all the information that you need to write the bullet. Then we're going to talk about actually drafting the bullet itself. There is three parts to a bullet: the accomplishment or the action, the impact, and the result. So we're going to talk about each one of those. Then we're going to talk about polishing the bullet. There's a system that we call ABS, accuracy, brevity, and specificity, that we're actually going to talk about on how to polish a bullet once it's written. Then we're going to talk a little bit about performance standards and the actual new narrative and the information that's out there. And then finally, we're going to finish off with the myEval and the filling out of the myEval columns on the EPR. So first of all, you need to get organized. Everybody out there collects information differently. Some people write it in a little green book. Some people pull up a Word document and write it in there. Whatever the case may be, you need to collect information on your individuals. And there's two reasons. A lot of people say, well, I'll just let my airmen collect the information and they can send it to me and I'll write the EPR from that. The problem with that is there's no comparison. So in other words, they should keep tabs on themselves and you should keep tabs on them. And then you can do a comparison when it comes time for the EPR to find the most effective bullets. So anything that is happening, accomplishments, awards, volunteer work, education, anything like that, that can be used to write an EPR bullet should be collected. Now there's a little known but well used, I should say, hopefully well used, premise that we can use that's called myVector. And this is in the Air Force portal. Under the Education, Training, and Force Development link, there is myVector. And myVector is for all personnel, including civilians. So if you supervise a civilian, they can use this also. And inside of that myVector is a bullet tracker. And the bullet tracker allows the individual to input their accomplishments. And then when it comes time for that EPR or that OPR, they can actually send it to the supervisor as a PDF. So once you first come in to myVector, right in the middle of the screen, there is a button that is called Build Bullet Tracker. And the Build Bullet Tracker actually allows you to go in and create the repository to save information. Once you go into Build My Bullet Tracker, it pops up to this window right here. There's a button on the left-hand side that says Bullet Tracker. Once you click on Bullet Tracker, it actually will start the repository. Now, from that point, you have to click on the button, Start New Bullet Tracker. And once you click on that button, what it does is it opens up a window to allow you to answer some very basic questions. First of all, what grade the individual is, the supervisory start date and end dates, their supervisor's name, and then any comments that are needed. That's all they have to fill out. Once they fill out that, they'll click on Create Bullet Tracker, and it will create the repository. Now, let's say, for example, your airman comes to you and says, hey, I've actually got a great bullet. I did this. You can direct them to go to Bullet Tracker and put it in. Once they come into the repository, they log in and they go into myVector. They will click on Add a Bullet. And then once they click on Add a Bullet, what that does is it allows them to select the category, whatever category it is. It's a drop-down menu. It allows them to select the category, education, volunteer work, whatever the case may be, primary duty. Then there are 3 boxes below that. Each one actually meets the standard for a bullet. So enter the action taken, enter the impact of the action, and enter the result of the action. So actually the 3 parts of a bullet is right there in that window. So that allows you to actually go in and fill those out. Now, let's say, for example, that the person doesn't know what the impact of the result is yet. The only mandatory entry is the action. You can actually go in as the subordinate and go in and fill out the other columns later on once you know the impact or the result. Once you fill out these columns, you would click on Create Bullet, and it would actually save it to the repository. So let's say, for example, your individual, you go to your individual and you say, okay, it's time for your EPR. So instead of them pulling up a Word document and trying to think of what they've done over the last year or 2 years, they can actually go in, if they've used myVector, and they can actually export that information as a PDF to their desktop. Once they export that to their desktop, they can actually email it to their supervisor for use in their EPR or OPR. And this is what it actually looks like once, when you actually pull it up, that it saves it to as a PDF. Now, once you've collected the information, you have to go from there to actually write the EPR. So Sergeant Barron is going to talk about what we do from this point on.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so we've now gone through and we've gotten all this information, however we keep it, whether it is by paper, on our computer, the information is gathered by us, by our subordinates, whatever it is. Now we need to know how to get started actually writing those bullets. And to do that, we need to know the format that these bullets go into. So the bullet format is going to be used for all of your EPRs and OPRs for the foreseeable future, at least through mid part of next year. So most bullets get kicked back and get rewritten and things along those lines because they're not in the correct format. So we need to know the format that's going to be used. Next, we need to know how to edit our bullets. So to be a good editor of bullets, we need to be able to read, reread, have somebody else look over our bullets. You want to check for any misspellings, any grammar mistakes, punctuation issues, any typographical errors, things along those lines. And you just want to have that extra set of eyes going through and looking at your bullet to make sure that it is in the correct format. And any questions you might have will more than likely be able to be answered in the tongue and quill. So that's a great resource for you to have when you're writing your bullets to be able to make sure that it is in the correct format. All right, and finally, we want to write effectively. The whole purpose of having bullets is to grab that reader's attention and to spell out the exact action that was done by our subordinates. And to do that, we have to use positive words and phrases, and we have to use words that are going to grab attention. So we want to use a good, strong action verb, and we're going to get a little bit more into what words to use when we talk about our bullets here in just a moment. So grab our reader's attention, use positive words and phrases, and that's going to make an effective bullet. Some things we want to avoid. We want to make sure that we're not embellishing the information. We want to stick to the truth of what that individual did. We want to make sure that we get to the point. You have a very limited amount of space, and this is going to come into play even more when we look at how the new form in myEval is written. You have a very limited amount of space to get your information in there. You only have a certain number of characters to be able to get your information into the form in myEval. So we have to get to the point quickly and not make our bullets too long. But at the same time, we want to be specific. We want to stick to what exactly they did. So we don't want to be vague. We don't want to beat around the bush. Get right to the point as to what that individual did, and then talk about that action. And for the current cycles, we want to make sure that they are three-part bullets, and those three parts are action, impact, and result. So we have to make sure that our bullet format is correct as well. And then finally, we want to make sure that they are properly categorized. Too often, a lot of bullets get kicked back and a lot of EPRs because the bullets are in the wrong category. We want to make sure that if we're giving a bullet about what their main job duty is, that's where we're going to be putting it. We don't want to put the fact that they received their bachelor's degree in their main job duty category. And we want to make sure that we don't talk about their volunteerism in some of the other categories. We want to make sure that all of the categories are used properly. So that's where we want to avoid those kind of errors. All right, so now we have all that information. We know what we don't want to do. We want to now start putting together our bullet statements. So the first thing we have to do is extract the facts. You're going to get a lot of information from your people. You're going to get books and books of information. You're going to get sentences. You're going to get just couple words. You may get paragraphs about what they've done, explaining the details, and it's going to be your job to extract the facts out of all that information. So the first thing you're going to do is extract those facts. You have to gather all of the information together, get everything together. It doesn't matter how much there is, doesn't matter how many pages of material you have. You want to gather all of that information together, and then you can start going through everything. So collect all that information. Some things you want to consider. You want to look for specific actions that they do. You want to isolate and record those specific actions. You want to use an action verb. Look for things that they've actually done. If they are a maintenance person, did they repair equipment? If they are in comm, did they install new fiber optics someplace? If they are in a training section, did they design a new training program? Whatever it is that they did, you want to look for action verbs that describe what exactly that action was. And then we want to record numerical information. We want to look for dollar amounts. We want to look for time spent, time saved. We want to look for how many things that they actually repaired or fixed. We want to look for all of these numerical information. We want to link it all together. Everything has to impact something else. You can't just have a single accomplishment. It has to somehow be tied into the mission. And that's what we want to do. We want to look at how that impacted the mission, how it impacted the wing, how it impacted the Air Force, how it impacted just the unit. Whatever it is, we want to look big picture and see exactly whatever it is that their accomplishment was, how it impacts the overall mission. And we want to link those things together. And that's what a bullet does. It links an action with the result for the group, the wing, the unit, the Air Force, however we want to look at it. Next, we want to categorize the information. We've got all this information. We've pulled out all these different actions. We've looked at all these things. We want to look and see, is it useful? Some of it may not look useful right from the get-go, but we don't want to discard any information right away. We want to keep all of that information because we may be able to use it later on down the line. You may end up looking at one thing one time and see, I just don't see how this is going to show an impact to the mission. And then as you look further into other information, you're able to link those things together. So don't discard any information just because at first glance, it doesn't look like it's going to be useful. Keep all of that information together and just kind of categorize it into those different categories. Is this something that deals with their overall job aspect? Does it talk about more towards that whole airman concept? What exactly category does that fit into? And then just keep all of that information for use at a later time. All right, so we've got our information, we've got it categorized. We have the basic groundwork there. Now we have to go in and actually construct the bullet. So some basic ground rules when it comes to a bullet. Every bullet is going to start with a dash. Whether it be on the new forms in myEval, whether it be on the old paper forms that we used, every bullet is always going to start with a dash. The only punctuation that is going to be within a bullet is going to be the internal punctuation that separates the action from the impact and from the result. And the way that's going to work is you're going to have a dash at the very beginning. In between your action and your impact is going to be a semicolon. And then between your impact and result is going to be a double dash. Those are going to be the only internal punctuations that's going to be within a bullet. You're never going to use ending punctuation in your bullet. The reason is this is just a snapshot of what they did. This is not an actual sentence. It's not a whole complete thought. It is just a snapshot of what that individual did. So there's going to be no ending punctuation in a bullet. You want to make sure and avoid using pronouns. We already know who the individual is that we're writing these bullets on. It just takes up extra space and it's just redundant when we look at the overall picture of the bullets. So avoid using pronouns and minimize the use of that individual's name because it's going to be at the top of the page. We already know who it is that we're writing these bullets for. So you don't need to waste the time and space putting their name or pronouns within the bullet itself. So when you're constructing the bullets, keep these things in mind as the basic ground rules. All right. So once we get into things, now it's time to put everything together in a cohesive fashion. And to do that, we use what's called AIR, action, impact, and result. And Mr. McCoy is going to take over and talk a little bit about what all three of those mean and what we can do to separate those.
So in the action, we're always going to start off with the dash, as Sergeant Barron said. Then we're going to go into the action and our internal punctuation. So start with the dash, give us our action. Then we're going to go with the semicolon to the impact, and then the double dash to the result. Okay, and that's per regulation. All right, so let's start off with the accomplishment element, also known as the action statement. So start with an action verb. You should always start with an action verb, as was said earlier. Repaired, replaced, designed, created, whatever the case may be. Always start with an action verb. Okay, so we're going to give you an example here that we're going to work on over the next few minutes. So in this example, processed over 300 mobility records with no errors as part of the 81st Air Base Wing ORA. So our example, our action verb is the word process. So they processed the mobility records. So therefore, that is our action verb. Now, you can go in and accentuate the action verb with an adverb. Okay. In this case, we use the word tenaciously. So let's talk about the adverb for a moment. Two things about the adverb. Number one, the adverb should not be put in there just for the simple fact of filling space, because that's not the idea behind it. The idea behind the adverb is to accentuate the verb. Number two, you should always make sure that the adverb fits the verb. So in our example here, even though we use the word tenaciously, notice that it doesn't really fit the word processed. So it would be very difficult to tenaciously process something. So, so make sure that the adverb, if you're going to use it, is pertinent, and make sure that it fits the verb that you're using it with. So next is the impact. The impact clarifies the action. What organization, or how did it affect the organization? What level? Was it unit? Was it wing? Was it Air Force level? Whatever the case may be. So what level did it affect the organization? So back to our example. So tenaciously processed, left tenaciously in there for now. Tenaciously processed over 300 mobility records with no errors as part of 81st Air Base Wing ORE. All unit personnel met their scheduled jog times. So if you follow the way that this rolls, they processed the mobility records without error. Therefore, because there was no errors, it allowed less time for all the mobility records to be checked. Therefore, all the unit personnel were able to meet their scheduled chalk times based on the fact that there was less time used. So notice how it goes from the action to the impact. Okay, so the question is, what level of impact is this example? So at first glance, you would have to say that it's unit because it says all unit personnel. But if you take a closer look at the bullet, it's part of the 81st Air Base Wing ORE, which is a wing level impact. So therefore, like Sergeant Barron said, you need to take a look at the big picture. What is the largest aspect of affection that it actually occurred? Okay, so in this particular instance, even though it says unit personnel, it was part of the wing ORE. So next is the result. The result is directly tied to the accomplishment and the impact, like an extension. So basically what to think here is, what was the end outcome? What ended up being the result of the action that the person took? So in our example, we said that it was paramount to the unit achieving a highly effective IG rating. All right, so again, let's follow the bouncing ball here. So it went from they processed the mobility records without error, which allowed the individuals to meet their scheduled chalk times. Because all the individuals met their scheduled chalk times, that was paramount to the unit achieving a highly effective IG rating. So again, from action, impact, result. Next, we're going to streamline the bullet. Now, once the bullet is created, a lot of times it's going to be very long. So with that being said, Sergeant Barron is going to talk about what we call ABS, accuracy, brevity, and specificity.
All right, so we've got our bullet pretty much worked through. We know what our action, we know what our impact is, and we know what our end result is. So one way to kind of look at things when it comes to the bullet is to, as I like to look at it, from back to front. So we have our bullet already done and we know what our action, impact, and result is. And so to make sure that it makes sense, we want to think of things as, what was the end result? The end result in our example was that they got a highly effective IG rating. Could they have done that? Or what was paramount to them achieving that? They had to have met all of their chalk times. Could they have met all of their chalk times without them processing all of those records without error and things along those lines? So you have to look at it from front to back, and then from back to front to make sure that everything kind of looks good. But the next thing we're going to look at is streamlining the bullet. We have all this information there, but now we have to make sure that it fits where it needs to go, whether it be on the old system where it has to fit on one line, or with the myEval system where it has to fit within 115 characters. So here we go. This is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about ABS, or accuracy, brevity, and specificity. We want to be accurate with what we say. We want to be brief with how we say it. And then we want to make sure that we're using specifics. So the first thing we want to talk about is accuracy. When we talk about accuracy, this is meaning that we never want to exaggerate or embellish what exactly we're saying. So we want to make sure that we're being accurate with what we're saying, but we're not making it over the top. I know we've probably all seen those bullets where you start reading it and right away, the first thing that comes to your mind is, oh my gosh, this is going to be a good one. They're using all these fancy words to try and trick you into thinking that they're doing something that they really didn't do. So we want to just make sure that it's accurate. So don't exaggerate and don't embellish. We want to make sure that it's brief. We want to replace some of those long and confusing words with short, clear, and common terms. And the reason we want to do this is because we're never sure where these bullets are going to end up. Who's going to be the last person that reads this? It may be somebody that's in a completely different career field. It may be somebody that has no idea what some of the specific terms, especially in some of the technological career fields, some of the maintenance career fields, they don't understand what some of those confusing terminologies that are used on a day-to-day basis is by specific career fields. So we want to replace those confusing words with short, clear, and common terms. Some words that you can reduce or eliminate completely out of your bullets are some of these. We want to get rid of the articles, a's, ands, thes, things along those lines. They don't add anything to the bullet. All they do is take up space. Same thing with helping verbs. Can, could, may, might, shall, should, will, would, must. All of these things, we want to get rid of those because, again, they just take up space. They don't really add anything to a bullet. Any forms of be, have, and do, any linking verbs. We talked a little bit earlier about personal pronouns and your names. We want to get rid of those things. And then again, prepositions, over, under, in, during, within. We want to get rid of those words. Again, they just take up space. So we want to make sure that these bullets are as brief as possible so that they fit in the space allowed, with also being able to get across exactly what the information is that we're trying to get across we can do. All right, and finally, we want to talk about specificity. We want to be specific, have detailed facts and exact numbers. So in our example, remember our original example said that they tenaciously processed over 300 error-free mobility records. Well, here we have actually given those specifics. Exactly how many records did they process? Originally over 300. Well, that could be anything from 301 up to 3,706,280. We don't know. So we want to put in a specific number. So we're going to put in exactly how many mobility records they actually processed, which is 342. And then you'll notice in the second part within our impact, before it said that ensured that all unit personnel met their scheduled talk times. And here we've just changed that all to 100%. 100% and all are interchangeable. They're exactly the same when you think about it. The reason that we put the numbers in there is because the way that the human brain works is anytime that it sees something that is out of normal, it slows down and it takes the time to actually look through that to see exactly what it means. So when we have a nothing but a bunch of words, if we replace some of those words with numbers, it forces the brain and the person that's reading it to slow down and look at things. So if you can replace all with 100%, it slows people down and it just kind of helps that to stand out a little bit more. So it's the exact same thing. It's just numbers rather than letters. So there we go as far as that. All right, so then we've gotten those things fixed. So what else can we do to make this bullet even better than what it is? Because it's still going to be a very long bullet. It's not going to fit in the space that we have available. So we have to shorten it up at some point. So now we can take a look at some of those things that are in there that can get rid of. And some of the things that we can do to get rid of some of these things is look at some of the words that we use, how we can shorten things up. Can we use abbreviations? Can we use acronyms? Can we use different words that mean the same but take up less space? So here's what we ended up with. So processed 342 error-free records. Notice we've gotten rid of that tenaciously. We don't need it in there. It doesn't really add anything to the bullet. We want to make sure that we know exactly what they did, and what they did was process 342 error-free records. Notice that we got rid of the mobility error-free records. We shortened up the word records and abbreviated into the abbreviation. And then further on, ensured 100% unit personnel met their scheduled chalk times. Well, we know that if there are personnel, that they're probably part of our unit. So we can get rid of unit. We can get rid of the insured part of it because, again, 100% personnel met their chalk times. That stands on its own. And we can go ahead and get rid of that scheduled because we know that chalk times are scheduled. It's just a given. We can get rid of that. It's just extra words that don't need to be there because it doesn't really add anything different to the overall impact of the bullet. And then finally, we just see that that last whole part has just been shortened up to rated highly effective. And you'll notice that highly effective is in all capitals. The reason why that is all in capitals and why we've gotten rid of the IG rating and things along those lines is because within a bullet, if you look at the regulations, there are only specific things that can be put into all capitals in a bullet. One of them is any kind of name for an operation, whether it be a red flag, whether it be a military operation like OA, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, whatever it may be. That's one thing that can be in all capitals. The only other thing that can be in all capitals is an IG rating. So knowing that, we can get rid of that because it's just redundant again. So rated highly effective. We know that it's an IG rating because of the fact that it's all in capitals. So we get rid of that other part. We've gone from a very long bullet to a very short bullet, which gives the exact same information. It just takes up a lot less space by kind of reducing things down, getting rid of extraneous information and getting rid of information that doesn't really need to be there. So that's our final bullet right there. All right. So the next thing we want to do is take a look at a scenario here. So here's a scenario that we're going to look at, and we're going to go through and pull out the information and see what kind of bullets we can pull out of this. So take a minute or so, read through this one little scenario, and then we'll take a look at some of the information in there. All right. So let's take a look at this real quick. So say this was the information that you as a supervisor got from Master Sergeant Taylor. She writes to you and says, this is what I did. This is everything that I did to get this accomplished. And here you go. So you as a supervisor need to go through and actually pull out information to be able to write a bullet to highlight what your person, Master Sergeant Taylor, actually did during her time here. So here's some information that may be of use. Where did this take place? At what level is this at? So it was done at the Incirlik Air Base in Turkey. And what exactly did she do? She kicked off a broadcast campaign to lower the base DUI rates. She conducted 3 interviews. She produced 6 TV and radio spots, all in 2 weeks. Because of that, she dropped the DUI, or she helped the DUI rates drop by 35%. And her effort earned first place in an Air Force-wide media contest. So a lot of information there that she was able to accomplish out of this whole big paragraph of information. So let's break this down a little bit more. Here is one initial bullet that we may have pulled out of this. Decreased Incirlik Air Base DUIs. Worked with Commander to develop 9 products and 1 Air Force media contest. So we pulled out some information. We've got a bullet here. It's got an action, it's got an impact, and it has a result. But we have to look at it and say, is it the most impactful bullet that we could have? Is there things that's missing out of here? And we've talked before about the importance of having any kind of specific numbers, having specific things that were accomplished. All of those things really go through. So let's take a look at this. Decreased Incirlik Air Base DUIs. A couple of things with this one. First, we don't know how much it decreased by. Did it decrease by 1%? Did it decrease by 90%? We don't know based off of this. The other thing with this, decreased Incirlik Air Base DUIs. Did Master Sergeant Taylor actually decrease the Incirlik Air Base DUIs? Probably not. She probably was not going around the base and pulling people over or stopping people from driving after heading to the club or things like that. So she personally did not decrease the Incirlik Air Base DUIs. Her efforts led to a decrease, but she specifically did not decrease the DUIs. Next thing we want to look at, worked with Commander to develop 9 products. What type of products? We have a number in there, but we don't know what type of products were actually produced. And then 1 Air Force media contest. Good information. Okay. So we want to rework this a little bit, and we want to get some more information in there. We want to rework it a little bit. So we go sit down and we put this right here in there. Developed broadcast campaign on DUIs, produced TV and radio commercials, and 1 Air Force media contest award. All right, so here we have a little bit better action because what was her actual action? She developed a broadcast campaign on DUIs. That was her actual action. And then she produced TV and radio commercials. Okay, that's exactly what she did. However, again, we don't have a specific number of TV and radio commercials. How many TV and radio commercials did she actually produce? And then again, now we've got 1 Air Force Media Contest Award. Okay, again, it's there, it's good, but we can do a little bit better. So we sit down, we look at it, and we get this one right here. Spearheaded wing radio TV anti-DUI push. Okay, this one's a little bit better. At her rank, again, we want to look at what action verbs we're using. And as a master sergeant, typically she's going to be in that management role. So she is going to be the leader of different things, whether it be this anti-DUI push, whether it be putting together commercials or whatever it is. So she spearheaded the wing radio TV anti-DUI push. Because she did that, they was rated as the #1 broadcast campaign in the 2013 Air Force Media Contest. So she won the Air Force contest for the broadcast campaign. And overall DUIs were down for the wing by 35%. So here we have those numbers and why it's important. We know exactly how much the DUIs decreased on the wing. We know what she did exactly what she did. And then we also know what the impact was with her winning the Air Force media contest. So then we finally get to those, and now we have to make sure that they're actually going to fit on where we're going to go. And all three of these, even though one is okay, one's a little bit better, and one is even better, all three of these will fit on the lines that we need it to. So one of the things we need to look at is when we look at some of the different bullets that are out there. One of the things that I've done over the last couple of years is worked with NGB for the outstanding airman NCO, senior NCO, and outstanding first sergeant award packages that have gone, and one for the National Guard. And then before they go on to the Air Force side of the house, there's a panel that has been put together that goes through and looks at all the bullets and polishes them up and make sure that they look the best before they go over to the Air Force to compete against the regular Air Force as well. So these are a couple of samples that were on the 1206s for actual bullets that won at the National Guard level. So let's take a look at this first one. Program Manager Engine Test Cell. $10 million Hush House Refresh, first C-130 Air Force prototype, key to 40 hours engineering man hours reduction. All right, so a couple of things on this one. Lots of good information as far as numbers. We have a dollar amount. We have that $10 million refresh. They were the first C-130 Air Force prototype for the Hush House, and they reduced man hours by 40 hours. All great stuff. But one thing that we need to look at is, let's look at their action. What exactly did they do? If we look at their action, Program Manager Engineer Test Cell, is that an action or is that just a title? That's just a title for what that person did. It doesn't say anything as to what they actually did in that position. So again, we want to make sure that they have an action to begin with, and that always is going to start off with a action verb. Let's look at this next one. Hush House Focal Point. ID design flaw, zero environmental control, certified 17 MXG airmen, improved processes, increased wing capabilities by 40%. Again, we've got numbers, we've got some good information here. The only issue is, again, a Hush House Focal Point is not an action. That does not discuss what they actually did. So we need to rework this one to put in an actual action, move some things around. So we can do that with a lot of different ways of looking at this particular bullet. There's lots of information in here, and we can put some of that information in different spots to make sure that there's an action, an impact, and a result. Let's look at this next one. Senior instructor with Civil Air Patrol, 33 cadets trained in drill and ceremony skill, fostered teamwork, attention to detail. So a couple things with this one. Again, we don't really have an action. We just have what position they filled. They filled the position of a senior instructor with the Civil Air Patrol. Yes, 33 cadets trained in drill and ceremony skill. There we have our specificity, and we have some good information. But then our final result, fostered teamwork and attention to detail. How do you measure that? How do we know that there was more attention to detail after her instruction or before the instruction? We don't know. It's hard to gauge how they do that. So we probably want to go in and come up with a different type of result. We want to tie it into how it affected the Civil Air Patrol, because that's what we're talking about. So we want to look at what was the overall result. So we want to rework this again and give an action in there. And we have 33 cadets trained. Trained is a great action verb. So moving things around is going to give us that action, impact, and result. It just takes a little bit of reworking. Another one, outstanding academic achievement. Completed weather forecast journeyman course, awarded DG for 100% test scores. Again, what is the action? Outstanding academic achievement. That is not really an action. It doesn't say anything about what they actually did. What they did was complete the weather forecast journeyman course. Then what was their impact? Because they completed the weather forecast journeyman course, they achieved an outstanding academic achievement. And because of that, they were awarded the distinguished graduate for 100% test scores. So again, it takes moving things around to make sure that it flows correctly from an action to an impact and to a result. There has to be a flow to all of your bullets, whether it's going to be in bullet format or as we progress into the performance statements, it has to flow. So there has to be an action, an impact, and a result. All right. So we've seen a lot to do with bullets, and we've talked a lot about how things are changing from the bullets into our performance statements. The 1206s for awards and things along those lines have already started moving into those performance statements. And as Mr. McCoy has said before, our OPRs and EPRs are going to be moving to performance statements coming up later on in the new year as things progress through. So Mr. McCoy is going to go through and talk a little bit about performance statements as they apply to the 1206s.
Okay, so as you can see on the slide here, right now the 1206s officially have switched over to the performance standard format. It's our understanding, at least in the International Guard, that some units are going to stick with the bullet format for at least the end of this year and then switch over. As for EPRs and OPRs, OPRs will start with the next cycle as of 1 March of next year. And then the EPRs will start with the chiefs at the end of May, the 31 May into 1 June. So they will actually switch over. One of the things that is going to have to happen before that can occur in my-eval is they're going to have to change the format of my-eval, because my-eval right now is set up for bullets. So we'll during the my-eval section, we'll talk about that for a little bit. So as for performance statements, the guidance that is out there right now by Air Force is that it is deliberately and not overly prescriptive to allow flexibility and freedom when capturing performance. Okay, so what it comes down to is they are giving you that flexibility to write the statement the way that you want to write it. There are 2 basic principles to this. The first one is that it is a standalone. Each performance statement is a standalone sentence and has an action and an impact or results outcome, which is exactly what a bullet is. So even if you have a bullet right now, you can actually take that bullet and convert it into a performance statement based on that fact that it's a standalone. Number 2 is readability. Use plain language. They suggest that avoiding using uncommon acronyms and abbreviations. If you're going to use them, they must be approved on the Air Force acronym and abbreviation list, which is at this AFPC af.mil site. You can go into the career management section and look for the acronyms there. But as far as being stated by Air Force, you need to try to stay away from acronyms and abbreviations and spell it out. So the 1206 nomination for award, okay, remains the standard for the award for nomination of awards at this time. White space, one of the concerns is always white space. So the white space, according to Air Force instruction, the white space is both accepted and expected, because once you type in a narrative or a performance statement, you can't control the word wrap from one word to the next. So that is not an indicator of quality. They do expect it, and it is accepted. The administration format. each award authority. So what we're basically talking about here is either your wing level or your command level. We'll establish maximum nomination length, number of lines. As far as we know at this point, no wing or no entity has made this determination as of yet. The only thing that it says on the 1206 is that, just basically as the 1206 states now, is that it will not exceed one full page, and that includes your performance statements and any headings. And that the exception to that is anything that is sponsored by the DoD or other federal agencies or non-federal entities when specified. So basically it will stay to one full page or no more than one full page, even though it's a performance statement.
If I could just jump in real quick. So basically what this is talking about is anybody that has put in a 1206 for any type of award before knows that based on whether it is for a commendation medal, whether it's for a yearly award, whether it's for a quarterly award, whether it's for a MSM achievement, whatever it may be, there is a specific number of lines that you have to put in as for per regulation. So for an MSM, or for a commendation, for an example, you have to have with the current system no more than 11 bullets. For a yearly award, no more than 16 lines. So it varies from award to award. So as this transitions, you have to keep in mind that where normally you're writing bullets, which is one single line on a 1206, you are now going to be switching over to these performance statements, which are going to take up more space, but you are not given any extra space to write it. So you still have just that one sheet of paper, the one side of a 1206 to fill out for each one of these awards. So you have to be very specific with how you word it and how you write all of these. And each one is going to be prescribed a different maximum length. So they may be switching up. Instead of the current form where for a yearly award, you may have to write out no more than 16 bullets. They may go down to, okay, you now have to do no more than 8, for example, performance statements. Each time that they come out with these awards, whether it be a yearly award, a unit award, a quarterly award, whatever it may be, it will state how many of these performance statements need to be on each form. So be aware of that when you're writing these, that it's going to take up more space and you don't have that option of running over to another sheet of paper or anything else. It has to fit on that one form. So just keep that in mind as you're going through that. That's what they're talking about here.
Okay. So continue with the administration format. Bullets are not authorized. All right. So once we switch to the narrative or the performance statement, bullets are not authorized. The 1206, they're saying that the future 1206s will be built in with character limitations to determine that award nomination length. Excuse me. But as of this time, it is not. So here's an example that was given to us by Air Force. And notice the action is in the green. So in this particular case, Captain Snuffy led a survey team in support of the PACAF ACE, culminating, so the result or the impact. He also championed organizational merger, which saved man hours and increased sortie generation. So you can see here, there are multiple actions as we go through this and multiple impacts as you write the narrative. So the idea behind the narrative here is to go in and put as much information about what they did for that particular action as possible. Here's another one. Sergeant Snuffy led 4 instructors. He generated, or they generated, how many changes, eliminating classroom hours, enhancing a course experience. He also facilitated a renovation project that started on time. Okay, so again, action and then the impact result. Okay, written out in a sentence format. Now, here's our example of what we did with the actual bullet that we wrote earlier. So you can see that we took that bullet and we said that she developed wing-wide DUI reduction campaign, told exactly what she did, how she led, again, senior NCO led, and then what the DUI rate was and the Air Force media contest. So you can see exactly what she did in this bullet, or in this narrative statement. So the bullets, even though they're going away, can actually still be of use due to the simple fact that it can help you write the narrative statement. So next, Sergeant Barron is going to talk about myEval and some effects of myEval.
All right. So some things that we're going to talk about as far as myEval. For those of you that have not had any experience with myEval yet, it is simple to find. We're going to talk about where to find it. We're going to talk a little bit about what information is going to be entered into myEval. We're going to talk a little bit about how it flows, and then we're going to talk about some updates and improvements. The reason we're going to talk about updates and improvements, for those of you that have used myEval, it is very widely known, and the developers know for a fact that there are definitely glitches and there are issues with the system right now. Information that is loaded is disappearing, then reappearing. It's cross-referencing personnel. So you may be writing information on one person, hit a refresh screen, it goes to the next screen, and all of a sudden you have information pulled up on somebody in a different state, in a different unit, and things along those lines. There are glitches in the system. We are going to basically just work through what the hopeful end result of myEval will be and how to use it, because anybody that has started doing any kind of midterm evaluations or writing EPRs and things like that, this is what we have available to use right now. It has already been started to being used for EPRs and entering in all of our midterm and end of year assessments. So this is what we've got to use. So this is what we're going to talk about. So where do we find myEval? If you've never seen it before and you've never gone to it, if you go into your FSS homepage, right down in below where all of the available little boxes are, you've got a chat box, you've got your education box, you've got your DEERS information or your DEX information, your fitness scores, all that kind of stuff. There is a box that says myEval. Very simply, you're just going to click on that and it's going to open up a screen that looks very similar to this. Any pending actions that you have, if you are notified that you have a pending action in myEval, you or your supervisor or your subordinate has requested a feedback or anything along those lines, all of that is going to be shown up in here under the pending actions. So if you have a pending action, you are going to go over to the right hand of the screen where it says continue performance evaluation. You'll click that button and it will now move into what looks very similar to the current EPR form. It's going to have your duty description. So you're going to fill in your duty description with what your daily activities are and what your duty description is. So you're just going to type in all of that information. You'll notice that below each one of these boxes is a countdown, and it will tell you how many characters you have available to type in the information. Unlike the old forms for EPRs where you just had the one line and you could fit as many words on that line as you could until you came to the end of the line. This is not that like that. This gives you X number of characters. It no longer takes into account the size of the letters, whereas the old system, if you had a capital W, it took up more space than a lowercase I or an L or something along those lines. In the new myEval form, every character or every letter, number, everything in there takes up the exact same amount of space. It just goes by character number. So keep that in mind. If you do a cut and paste, it's not going to look exactly the same. So given that, you're going to type in your duty descriptions, what your duty descriptions are, just like you had on your old EPRs and things along those lines. Once you finish with that, you're going to go ahead and down in the bottom right, hit the save and next. Once you go to the next screen, here is where you're going to have all of your bullets added in. So currently, this is going to be where you're going to put in your performance and leadership, primary duties, followership, and training information. So you're going to type all those in. It tells you exactly how many spaces you have available. So depending upon their rank, for airman to tech sergeant, you'll have 6 spaces available here. For master sergeant and above, you'll have your 8. So you'll type in your bullets. So you type in your bullets. Once you finish with your bullets, you'll go ahead and hit the save and next button, and it moves to your next one. Your next page is going to be your whole airman concept. Again, similar process. You type in whatever your bullets are for your two bullets for the whole airman concept. And then you'll see on the very bottom of this page is the overall performance assessment. So this would be your overall score for your EPR, wherever your overall performance is. And then you'll have your additional rater comments, and they'll have the ability to add in up to 2 additional rater comments, just the same as they do on the current EPR form. So you'll go in, you'll type in your additional rater comments, and then hit the save and next. You'll go into the next one, final evaluator comments, and any type of stratification or remarks. So your remarks are going to be where you're going to type in any uncommon acronyms or any other type of information into that line itself. You're also going to have in here for stratification, your senior rater will be able to use this box. You will not have access to this box, only a senior rater will. And this is where they will utilize that stratification to stratify the different airmen within their unit. Once you finish with this screen, you're going to hit that save and next button. You're going to go in to this next screen, and here's where you're going to see those future roles. You can put in up to 3 future roles for the individual, whatever they may be. This is also where you're going to notate any of their education. Do they have their CCAF degree already? Are they PME complete? And then are they eligible for promotion? And then if they're part of the quality force review, this will be where that is annotated as well. Once this part gets filled out, you'll hit save and next. And any information that needs to be uploaded, if this is a referral EPR, this is where any corroborating information, documentation, anything along those lines will get uploaded. If any of that stuff needs to get uploaded, you'll just hit the upload file button right there. You'll upload whatever information is there, and then you'll be able to save this information. This is also where, if depending upon the job and things along those lines, if they're getting ready to cross train or they're getting ready to go to a different career field, things like that, and they need fitness records or anything along those lines, they can upload those files to this point as well. Once they're finished at this point, they'll hit save and next again, and you'll come into a summary page. The summary page just goes through and you'll be able to scroll all the way through the entire EPR to make sure that there's no mistakes, check over all of the information to make sure that it's correct. Once you are done with the summary page, you'll go down to the bottom, hit submit, and once you hit submit, you'll notice at the very top of all of these screens, there is a status bar. On the very left is the rater or the ratee's information. Once the ratee is done, that will turn green. Then from there, it'll light up for the rating official. So whoever the rater is will now get notification that they have a form waiting for them to look at. Then they'll go through, add in any information, check over all the information. They'll submit it, and it will keep moving up the line until it gets all the way to the end. Once it gets all the way to the end, then it will go back through the process and have everybody sign off on everything. So it's very similar to the process that's currently in place. It is just done through myEval now rather than through the different processes that it normally would flow through. So a couple of things about myEval to keep in mind. So as you're using myEval, like I said, there are glitches. My recommendation, and from talking to a lot of people in the FSS and CSS community, the biggest thing that they will tell you is to make sure to save frequently. You will notice that on every screen, there is two buttons, one that says save progress and one that says save and next. The reason that they have the save progress button on each of the screens is that there is a timeout portion of each screen. Meaning, if you are in the process of typing out information, and for some of these screens, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference because they're relatively small. But as you're getting into some of these screens where you're typing in a lot of information, where you're typing in multiple bullets, or you're typing in a lot of different information, if you are spending an inordinate amount of time on these screens, and say you're typing in this information and you get to the last bullet and you're in the middle of typing out the last bullet, and you get a knock on your door and somebody needs, the chief needs to talk to you about a problem that came up, and you get up and you go talk to the chief. You're in with the chief for about 20-30 minutes. You come back to your computer, you boot your computer back up, you go into this screen, and guess what? All of that information that you had typed in is now gone, and you have to retype it in. There is a 15-minute timeout if you are not actively using myEval. So before you leave or before you get pulled away, you want to make sure and save your information. So you want to make sure to save your progress frequently so that you do not mistakenly lose all of your hard work and time and effort that you've put into entering in information into the myEval system. So as you're progressing, if you get pulled away before you leave your screen, save your work and then come back, and it'll still be there once you get back. Otherwise, you run the risk, if you're gone more than 15 minutes, that it could disappear and you'll have to start all over again. So just keep those things in mind when you're working with myEval, that there is a timeout measure incorporated into myEval. So we've gotten our eval information entered into myEval, and we've saved it. We've looked over the summary, and we send it on. So we've gone through all these processes. It goes up the line. It goes to whoever needs to approve it. We've gone through, we've signed it, and it just keeps going through the process. It's a very seamless process if and when it works correctly. So the one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is updates. So the latest information that we have based on the developers of the myEval system is they are aware that with the glitches, and they're working very diligently to fix those. Supposedly, they are going to be coming out with a myEval 2.0, hopefully by the end of the year, which will, in large part, fix a lot of those glitches. Because it pulls from so many different sources throughout the Air Force, it's getting a lot of crosstalk within the system itself that they weren't aware that it was going to happen. So they're working on putting those things to rest, and so that it will flow a lot better. So until that time, unfortunately, this is the system that we have to work with, and it just takes a little bit of time to go through and get the information added in, and it can be a little frustrating at times. My best recommendation is work with it as best you can and get a jump on things so that any issues that arise are able to get worked through so that you're not late in getting this information inputted and sent up. So hopefully by the end of the year, they should have a new system, myEval 2.0, and it will fix a lot of these glitches. Until then, unfortunately, this is what we have to work with. And I'm sure that once they get it fixed, it will be a very good system. It just has some issues right now, and they're aware of it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what we've talked about today. So in summary, basically today we talked about how to get started with collecting our information, getting organized, making sure that our subordinates and us are getting all the information throughout the time frame of the EPR cycle, whether it be 1 year, whether it be 2 years, depending upon the person. We want to make sure that we get all that information. We want to make sure that we know that format for our either bullets or our performance statements, depending on what we're writing for. Again, knowing where to find the information and how to write those formats. Your best tool is going to be the tongue and quill, which spells out exactly how they are supposed to be written and how they're supposed to look. Then we talked about editing and writing effectively, making sure that we're not falling into those common errors, and we're making sure that our bullets look good. Then we talked a little bit about drafting those accomplishment impact bullets. I'll let Mr. McCoy finish things up.
Yeah, so we talked about extracting the facts and then actually constructing the bullet and finally streamlining that bullet using accuracy, brevity, and specificity. Polishing the bullet. And then we talked about performance statements a little bit, and then finally about myEval. So on the narratives. So basically, there's limited information at this time on the 1206, and leadership determination will be vital, not only Air Force leadership, but your local leadership. No information yet on EPRs and OPRs on what the forms will look like in the narratives. They are going to have to create new forms in myEval to actually take this into account. So no information as of yet, unfortunately. As for myEval, we know it has inherent problems. I'm sure that if you've used it, you've experienced those. They are saying that they're going to upgrade to myEval 2.0, possibly by the end of the year. We'll see if that happens by the end of the year. The biggest thing that you can do to help yourself out is keep your local CSS informed of problems with the program, because they actually can go in, not themselves, but they can contact the people that deal with myEval and try to eliminate some of those problems. For example, I'll give you one example of the problem. I kept doing a midterm feedback on one of my master sergeants, and then it kept coming back and saying that it hadn't been done. After 3 times, I went to the CSS and said, hey, you know, I can't do his EPR until this feedback is indicated that it's completed. So the myEval went in, folks went in there and bypassed it so I could do his EPR. So just little glitches like that. Keep your CSS informed of the problems so they can try to help you out as much as possible. All right, so that's pretty much all we have for you today. It seems that we have lost audio contact with you. I would really like to hear some of your questions. We just got audio contact back. So does anyone have any questions on anything that we've covered today? All right, very good. So thank you very much for your time. I thought hopefully what we have showed you in the last hour and a half is useful. If you want to contact us whatsoever with questions, you can actually contact us at our org box at tec.tecu.org@us.af.mil. So if we have no final questions, thank you again for your time and have a good day.
Hey, many thanks to the TEC for your class. I did populate the email address into the chat. This is Chief Modak again, by the way. Let's see. I am going to open the chat here in a moment. I did get my teams to work. Those of you that were on at the beginning, I could not get my teams to work to grab the link of where the slides will be for today from what we spoke about earlier. And I'm going to put that in here in just a minute. Okay. I have opened up the chat. I'll just, Mr. McQuay, if you guys can hang out just one more second. Was there anyone that had any questions about the writing portion that the TEC just covered that you wanted to put into the chat? Or feel free to come off your mic and ask your question. Okay, I don't see anything. All right, I don't see anything. I really do appreciate your all's time. Your studio setup is awesome. We love it. So we're over here talking about your studio setup and all that good stuff. So I'm going to go back to a few of the questions that were more specifically about myDecs and see if, I don't know, Senior Sanchez is still on here. Before I do that, let me just make sure. No, I think she's gone. I'll ask the question if my team can answer, and if not, we're definitely taking notes of all of your questions, whether we were able to provide an answer or not. So let me go back to that. So I know there were some questions from Sue, and it looks like we provided some answers. Did you need to come off your mic, Sue, Houle, and ask any clarification? Please feel free to do so. Sergeant Wright, I can see where you said after looking at routing, the CSS has not approved or finalized. I'm happy to provide a performance number to look at. I tried chiming in, but my sound isn't working. Okay, we'll take that offline. For the group commander NA issue, who has the access to remove the group commander role and then reassign it? Would a CSS or MPF have it? Right. Oh, okay.
Chief, yeah, we're just kind of deliberating over here. I think it's the HRDSA, but we would probably have to get back with the answer on that one.
Okay. All right. Thanks. We're taking note. All right. And then, oh, I see Sergeant Sanchez. You had already said to Sergeant Wright that you'll take a look at that. Thank you. Leora, we are trying to figure out who can do that function, take away and re-grant permission. Oh, I know that was from an answer from a different question. Who can take away and re-grant permission? Okay, my understanding is the HRDSA is the one that grants permissions for the local roles.
Yes, Chief, that's the HRDSA.
Okay. So Leora, hopefully that helps you if you're still here. Okay, this is Sue again. You figured out how to update the narrative. However, you're having difficulty updating the CC information. Any ideas? Are you still here, Sue? All right. Team, do you guys have anything else you want to go before we turn it over to Ms. Hare?
No, Chief, we're good on this end.
Okay, so any Air Force reservists that are on the meeting still, if you want to go ahead and depart, we're going to do some Air National Guard specific content next. So I don't want to confuse you or bore you. Oh, wait, don't leave. Don't leave. I'm going to pop that into the chat real quick. Give me 1 second. Okay, so just a note on this link. So if you want to grab these slides from today's training, go ahead and grab this link that I just dropped into the chat. This is the headquarters ARPC information toolbox team. Inside of that team, there are several channels for the various programs that we are a part of that support you all out in the field. So if you want to grab this, this is the specific link for how to get to the channel that contains these slides. If you are not a member of the team, HQ ARPC Information Toolbox is the title. I'll just put it in the chat as well. Please feel free to reach out and let me know that you don't have it and you need it. Many of you do reach out and I go in there and you're already there. So I need you to look through your list of teams and just make sure that you either do or don't already have this team. And that is where these slides are posted and other helpful information. We're still building content in there, but this is our bridge, so to speak, between myPERS and myFSS. We realize that things are getting to be a little bit confusing as we're working through two platforms. So this is our attempt to just help provide assistance with that, in addition to you all being able to cross-talk amongst yourselves and help each other. There's a lot of you in there, and I do appreciate all of you that help one another with the different issues that we're having, because you guys in the field are touching these programs at different levels than we are here at headquarters ARPC. So thanks to all of you. Hopefully you all are able to grab that link and we'll go from there. And without further ado, I will release the Air Force Reserve and we can turn it over to Ms. Hare from NGB A1PS.
Good morning, Chief. Can you see my slides?
No, ma'am, not yet.
Can you see them now?
I do, I see them now.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jessica Hare, and I have my counterpart on this call as well, Master Sergeant Artina Mills. We work in NGB A1PS, and we handle the higher level decorations, special trophies and awards, and the policy processing for the ANG. So what we're going to talk about this afternoon is overall awards and decorations, Distinguished Service Medal, and the Legion of Merit, which is governed by DAFMAN 362806. We're going to discuss common package errors, citation guidance. We're going to provide a late letter sample, and then a completed Decor 6, along with package requirements and our current checklist. So for the Distinguished Service Medal, this is actually a decoration that is only for general officers and is basically awarded to any person while serving in any capacity with the Air Force who distinguishes himself or herself by exceptionally meritorious service to the U.S. in a duty or duties of great responsibility. So the main takeaways for a DSM is that you have to be a GO for a minimum of 36 months, and then you have to have a minimum of 18 months in your current position in order to be considered. One thing to note for NGB is that DENG, which is the Director of the Air National Guard, can only approve DSMs upon retirement. Anything that you're submitting on your GOs that have to go is for PCS or PCA conditions have to actually be sent through AFPC to SAFPC for final approval. Another noteworthy thing is that DSM packages typically take about 90 to 120 days for processing. You'll also see that information on the checklist, which we'll get to in a few. So then we move on to the Legion of Merit, which criteria has actually changed quite a bit over the last few years. I know that you remember in 2019, the position requirement was removed. So now all positions, officer like colonel and above and chief master sergeants are eligible for consideration pending they have at minimum 12 months in the position. They are the grade the entire inclusive period, and they have impacts or actions at a national or international level per the DAFMAN guidance. You can only have 4 LOMs per career, 3 for exceptional service and 1 at retirement. Some of the common package errors or missing items that we see at our level are the inclusive dates do not match with the assigned duty history. The duty history doesn't align with the Decor 6. The tag signature is missing, or the unit isn't providing a tag delegation letter. A record check statement is required for all of our nominations that come to NGB for higher approval. The narrative justification, even though the DAFMAN removed or made the narrative optional and allows for evaluations to be considered, the approval authority has the ability to still require this. And for all A&G submissions, this is actually still a requirement to date. If this is going to change in the future, we will update the checklist and send out notification to the field. And the reason that we still use this narrative justification is because if the citation is not strong enough to warrant the level of award at our level, we take the narrative that you guys submit and we take pertinent information, and sometimes we'll even rewrite the citation so that we don't have to return it to the unit and we can continue processing, which helps you and it helps us. So moving along to further information, missing late justification letters. So anything that's submitted to NGB with a presentation date within 45 days requires a late justification letter. Also, if an inclusive period has passed, senior leadership is going to want to know why the unit submitted it after the inclusive period. Moving forward, action statements should have impacts and results to follow. I believe that Mr. McCoy touched on this heavily during his recent presentation on bullet writing and performance statements. We also are seeing a lot of run-on sentences and citations, too many semicolons. The citation doesn't flow properly when read aloud. Also, not enough quantifiable data for the level of award. So when you're sending a DSM or an LOM up here, those are 2 of the highest peacetime decorations that can be given. And so you should have a lot of impact at national level, a lot of statistics. I would just suggest avoiding any vague statements or things that don't really have any impact or result to follow. Citation format not in accordance with DAFMAN 362806. And just to reiterate at the last of this bullet, the citation is the most important document to the member and should reflect the level of impact and highlight their most significant accomplishments. This is just a snapshot that we created of what the citation for an LOM or a DSM should look like based on the DAFMAN guidance. I'm not going to go over every single part of this, but once you take these slides, you can just kind of review how we put in there about impact result. We gave some examples. And then another key point that I want to touch on is that for DSM and LOM nominations coming to NGB for DANG approval, they really should be 16 lines. I know that the DAFMAN says 14 to 16, but for this level, and because the opening and closing statements are mandatory, we would like those to be 16 full lines. Now, exception to policies. We won't really get too many of these for LOM nominations these days. However, there may be one or two. So for all exception to policy requests, those have to be submitted through NGB to AFPC for their processing, and SAFPC, the Decorations Board, is the final approval authority. So just keep in mind that when you're sending decorations up here and asking for an exception to policy, not only is it the 90 to 120 day window that we require, but you will want to add on another 180 plus days for the other offices who have equity in this final approval process. Here is just a late letter sample. We're just providing this in case you didn't have a template or you wanted to see it. It really just, it's just going to provide leadership with the reason. It could be administrative oversight, or if you have even further reasoning, you have deployed members, or I know for a while there, states members were deployed during COVID operations and so on and so forth. And then here is a sample of a Decor 6. Be mindful that when you're sending the Decor 6 up, we need the entire highlighted items here completed. We get so many Decor 6s that are just blank and they're signed. We need the information filled out in order to process it. And then one thing to note when you're sending LOMs or DSMs up, they're always going to be for retirement, PCS, PCA, extended tour. We do not have authority to approve LOMs or DSMs for achievements. Those are prohibited. And then LOMs for achievements are only in combat conditions, and those wouldn't be routed through NGB. Those would be through AFCENT. Here's the second page. So here's some of the information that is vital when you're looking at the package. So ensure that the number 5, the current duty title, matches the member's duty history. The date of current assignment also aligns with the duty history, and that the date of promotion or data rank information is accurate. And we also utilize the Decor 6 to determine the member's most current or recent decorations. You want to ensure that the inclusive period for award isn't overlapping any previous decorations. And if by chance you're submitting a service decoration and a member already has, let's say, a commendation medal for achievement for a specific task, we also ask that you include that with these packages so that we can ensure that you're not including duplicate information. So items included, which this is also annotated on the checklist that we're going to see next, but it's the checklist that's required in the package. The citation, supporting documentation will include Decor 6, narrative justification. That will be 2 full pages for a DSM, for a PCA or PCS. Remember, those go to SAFPC for final approval. Retirement DSMs do not require a narrative. We just ask that the citation be as strong as possible because that is a high level decoration. The LOM currently 1 full page endorsed by the tag. If the tag has a signature authority, we ask for the delegation letter to be included in the package. All DSM nominations that are going to be submitted for your tag, those must be endorsed by the governor because the governor is who appoints the tag. The exception to policy has to be endorsed by the tag as well, if that's applicable. Late justification, again, must be submitted within 45 days of desired presentation date, or if the inclusive dates have passed. Also note that if you have an LOM submission that you want to be expedited, the late justification letter does not, we wouldn't know that you need to expedite it unless you actually personally reach out to us. That doesn't mean that it's going to get moved to the top of the pile because we review packages in the order received, and we receive quite a bit of packages on a weekly basis. You'll also need the duty history and then points credit summary for retirement decorations only, and then as previously stated, previous decorations. This is the DSM LOM checklist, which I referenced earlier. You can obtain this on the myFSS NGB Awards application. You can also access this on the A1PS SharePoint site. This is just a recap of everything that we discussed earlier. It gives the timeline, requirements, and you can initial these boxes, which will help you complete your package accurately. Also, please provide a POC for mailing, and presentation date is required. I'm just going through. Yep, and then we provide a little additional guidance, like when you're on the citation, like acronyms are not allowed, mandatory opening and closing sentences, no superscript or subscript, 2 spaces after each sentence, just minor things that may be useful. And that sums it up for the DSM and LOM presentation. I will turn it over for any questions.
Hey, Ms. Harris, Chief Modoc, I just opened the chat in case anyone wanted to type anything in.
Thank you. Let me open the chat myself. I'm sorry. I'm feeling under the weather, so I had to mute so I could cough.
Oh, no, it's okay. We appreciate you still giving the class.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Sergeant Kennedy, I had stated that there is a link. If you scroll up above, there's a Teams link. Let me know if you can see that. It's just a few messages above where we're at from the ARPC logo. Grab that link and go ahead and go to that location and see. We're gonna put all these Ms. Harris slides and our ARPC slides. We're also trying to capture in writing all of those Q&As that we already have with Senior Sanchez regarding myDecs. So we're trying to put that out there as well, so you guys have it for reference. Anyone else? Well, I had a question, Ms. Harris.
Of course.
When you were mentioning if something was for combat, I think I just wanted to, because we do the same thing. I know absent is like our most common, like COCOM area responsibility. But if they were in combat somewhere else in another area, I guess they would route that through the appropriate entity. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. And to my knowledge, to date, per AFPC or Air Force, we had this issue recently, which we posted about combat decorations in the A1 Up. And just so everybody knows, the A1 Up has really good information on a monthly basis as we, come into these types of situations. But absent is the only approval authority for the Air Force currently. They're the only delegated authority. So packages for combat related incidents would go directly to them. It would have to be routed through or endorsed if it was after the fact by someone in the member's chain of command while deployed. But yeah, they wouldn't even come to NGB for review. Does that help answer your question?
That's good to know. Mm-hmm. All right, we still have 162 participants. Are there any other questions? Feel free to ask us any other questions. We may not have an exact answer for you, but like I said, we are jotting down what you guys need, and we're trying to help as we can. So go ahead and if there's other questions, feel free to ask. I'm just going to give it another minute and then we will end this training. Oh, thank you. Tariq, I don't know that I mentioned The headquarters ARPC YouTube channel, I have not mentioned that. I've mentioned the slide several times. The link is just above in the chat to the teams. The headquarters ARPC YouTube channel, please go and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. This video will be available, I'm gonna say in the next 2 weeks. We have to download it from the cloud. Our PA team here at ARPC does a bit of editing to make it look better, cut out any of the dead space, and they tab it. So that video should be available in the next 2 weeks. And then you can obviously use that on any, from the YouTube link from any personal device and use that to train any of your folks there locally at your installations. Let's see. Our EPRs, wait. I'm with Kennedy, I don't know. I've posted the link. Are you guys not seeing the link that's just above a bit to the DoD Teams page? Is that the problem? Can someone come off their mic and talk to me? I don't know what's happening. Does anyone see the link that was posted in the chat from me?
Yes, the link is there, ma'am.
It isn't working. Yeah, you thank you. It's a bunch of numbers. You need to copy the full link. I don't know how else to, you have to copy the whole link, or you can go to Teams and look for Headquarters HQ ARPC Information Toolbox. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Some of you have it. Some of you have been able to have that work for you, so thank you. Our EPRs are getting NPF approved, but not submitted into ARMS or PRADA. Who is responsible for pushing completed EPRs to ARMS? I have completed EPRs that have been sitting since July. What are you sitting? Like sitting in my eval? This last name is, it says Smith. Smith, do you want to come off your mic and talk to us about that, or no? They are showing complete in my eval, but not in their PRADA record. My team, does anyone want to respond to that need?
Smith, if you want to, this is Sergeant Jennifer Van Horn. If you want to send me an email, then we can do that offline and see if we can get kind of like the back end and see if we can get them pushed.
Okay, Teams links are not great. Could you post a copy of the SharePoint link? If I knew how to do that, I probably could post it. I think I do remember seeing a button, but let me make sure there's no other questions in here. No, I don't see anything else. All right, we still have 148 participants. That's telling me we might still have some questions, or people aren't sitting at their device. Or maybe they're waiting to see if anyone else is going to ask a question. Team, do you guys have anything else for the audience?
No, Chief, we're good. We will put those questions and answers out on the Teams channel as soon as we get them compiled.
Okay, I was just going to look for this SharePoint link real quick. I mean, this is just as long of a path as the Teams one. So it is a different address though, obviously, because it's from SharePoint. I will, who was that asked for that? Let me go back. Daniel Eccles, give me a second and I'll try to post that in here. If you're, are you still there? I think you are, because you're still blue on the chat. Someone just asked about a gap report. Let me see. How will gap reports be submitted if needed?
If the question was answered in the chat, they need to submit a MyPers ticket.
Oh, I see that now. Thanks, Ms. Foster. Teamwork. All right, I'm grabbing that SharePoint link now, which is a long link as well. But if this is more helpful to someone, I am happy to post it. Okay. Can someone just validate that SharePoint link that I just posted? It should go to the same place. I'm not a SharePoint fan, so I apologize. I'm not as good in SharePoint. I just grabbed it from the same spot that the Teams location was at. So hopefully that works. Hello, are y'all gonna post the bullet narrative PowerPoint as well? To that BX, to that person, I'm gonna ask the TEC for that information, but the recording will be available as well. So I will ask them for the PowerPoint that they utilized, and I will absolutely post that in the same place if we're able to get that. So yes, as long as I can get it. Sergeant Torres from my team, the push to arms, this is done by the MP. Wait, is this from my team, Sergeant Torres? Is this Pam Torres?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hi.
Hi. So
Okay. Go ahead.
The push to arms is done by the MPF. There's a training out if you go into my evals, and then you click on, I just pulled it up, I'm sorry. Let me get back there, I'm sorry. At the top of your screen, once you log into your my evals, there's a drop down option. And then you can go to the myFSS library. And then within that myFS library, there's a, oh, it's under the helpful links. Sorry, it just populated. Under the helpful links, there's the myFS training library. Click on there, and then there's a PDF under the my evals folder, and then PDF job aids. And it's for the push to arms. So it says my MPF arms document upload. You're going to follow those steps to upload your documents once you've updated MIL PDFs. So that's how it's done. If you guys are still having issues after that happens, go ahead and let me know.
Sergeant Torres, how do you want them to let you know if they're, do you want them chatting or do you want them, how do you want them to do that?
Yeah, they can send myself or Master Sergeant Wright a message through Teams, through email, preferably through the Teams. We see the Teams a lot. And just let us know, hey, this is my unit is, these are the errors I'm getting when I try pushing it. And then we can look in the people that you're trying to push. If we can have a screenshots of the stuff you're getting, that will help us go ahead and look through that. Another way is just to submit a my evals ticket.
Thanks, Sergeant Torres. I thought I saw one more question that we hadn't answered. I'm just scrolling through to look for it. Oh, Melissa Franco, please repeat the headquarters YouTube site again. If you go out to YouTube and you're just looking for it, don't put ARPC because it's going to go somewhere else. It's some other company. You have to put the HQ ARPC in your search box into YouTube. And I am just typing that as well. Melissa, if you're still here, can you confirm that you got that? Okay, great. And there's all kinds of other videos too. So feel free to use any of the tools that are there. We're trying to keep that updated and relevant to where we're at. But as you guys know, things are just changing so quickly. So hopefully you're able to find useful information there for your local folks as well. All right, it appears as though we've answered every question that was, or we've tabled it. We have captured everything. This is one last chance, and then I'm going to go ahead and end the training. All right, thank you all for your time in this training, and have a great day.